to explain it in a layman term, what is a personal brand? I know a lot of people talk about it. It's always, something that everybody is constantly pushing down our throat on the social media. But why don't you just start with explaining what a personal brand is?
Yeah, so I'll answer it two different ways. One is it's a Jeff Bezos quote. He said, "Your personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room."
Mm-hmm.
And then other folks will say personal branding is really about an experience. So, what do people experience when they encounter you, encounter your information, encounter your content? And so, that's probably the most simplified way to say it without going into brand and fonts and that stuff, which is not personal branding, but it's really the experience you have once you encounter an individual.
Yeah, I love that because that's kind of what reminds us of Apple, right? Like if you go to an Apple store, it's an experience. It's not a store. It's not like the design. It's just like how Apple makes you feel, no matter where you encounter their products. And I love that you said it's an experience. It's not necessarily like the words people say about you, or the things that people think about you, but it's like, oh, how did I feel when I met this person? So how can we take control of that? Because I think a lot of people think that they don't have control over it. Like it doesn't, to them, it doesn't come naturally, and it feels like unintentional sometimes, that it just happens. But you and I both know that it's so intentional. So how can someone who has no idea of what a personal brand is, how can they actually start to discover this experience that they want people to have when they interact with them?
Yeah, I love that question there, Prashia. So, people have a personal brand whether they know it or not, right? So, it's a difference between whether you're crafting that message, you're changing the narrative, or you're just living life any old kind of way, happenstance. And so, you have a personal brand when it comes to how you interact with your family. Are you dependable? Right? Are you someone that shows up and that's supportive as a sibling, a son, a daughter, a niece, nephew, etc. And then you have that professional personal brand, which should coincide who you are, of your core essence of who you are as a person. And so, if you're looking to do great things, there's a great quote, and I may drop a bunch of quotes throughout this conversation, is you don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great. And so, if you're looking to do great things outside of whatever you're currently doing, in the state that we're in the current, I call career economy and digital economy, you have to build a personal brand. Now, you have some folks that are out there who've been doing great things for a long time, and they're just now tapping into it. And
Yeah.
so, when you see people like celebrities jumping on the podcast bandwagon, what are they doing? They're bringing their celebrity status personal brand over to the podcast space and monetizing that. And so when you think about the everyday folks, which we're all everyday, celebrities are no higher than, a 9 to 5 worker, but you have a gift and a talent that you were given, right? So we each possess something that is uniquely to us. And if we choose to build on that, grow it, massage it, making sure we're putting it to good use. This way, we know we're putting out good energy, and that can be an opportunity for us to monetize it for additional income outside your 9 to 5.
Yeah. And you've done it so well. So tell us a little bit about your journey, Orlando. So how did you go from 9 to 5 talent acquisition to like speaker and author and all these amazing things you're doing? What was your turning point? When did you realize that there was so much value in a personal brand?
Yeah, I think it's definitely started over 10 years ago.
Mm.
Where being in talent acquisition, you get a lot of notoriety, or should I say, outreach from the LinkedIn platform, just because people want opportunities. And so, as you start to just leverage the platform or within your community, people start to identify you with something specific. And so, I became the recruiter guy, to help someone find a job guy. And then I had different HRBP, SHRM organizations reach out to me like, hey, would you mind talking to us about, recruiting best practices? How do HR teams support TA teams, what's the difference between an agency recruiter and TA recruiter. And so that started to evolve. And then I was like, there's something here. I'm starting to get asked this quite a bit.
Yeah.
How do I get paid for this?
That's what
And
it comes
so,
down to every time.
right, I started to see other people do it. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm doing a ton of free, conversations and presentations, which I still do, but there's always the opportunity to say, hey, I have a wealth of knowledge, but you have to get over that fear, right? You're a full-time entrepreneur as well. And so there's that hesitant, there's that imposter syndrome. Like, will people really listen to me? Do I really have something to say? And so you really just have to take a leap of faith and just go for it and just know that you're doing the work to make sure that you're adding value. And so when that happened, I started to leverage the opportunities to speak. And then you had to put your little digital, everything together, a website and all these different things to make sure it looks more official. And so it's an ever evolutionary process. But I actually love it. I actually love it being able to, and I stay in my core of genius, which is recruiting, talent acquisition, things like that. And so you'll never hear me talk about astrology, what we were talking about earlier. It's just it's not my wheelhouse. don't call me to talk about that. It's not going to happen. So anything career development, I can be your go-to guy, to wow the audience and really educate them on, current practices.
Yeah, and I love that people reaching out to you and you were starting to like make sense of like, okay, this is what they think of me, this is what they're calling me for. Maybe this is where I need to lean in a little bit more. And I feel like sometimes we miss that opportunity. Like we don't pay attention to what the world is telling us to do or what the world recognizes us for, and we keep focusing on things that we think we should do, and we kind of never take that feedback, from our environment that people know us for this thing and maybe we can grow in that. I feel like I notice people trying to build personal brands in something totally opposite than what they might be really good at. And then they struggle because they can't build it because there's no foundation to it.